people do ask me all the time, like, was your childhood a little up? And I say, no. It wasn't the zombies that messed me up. It was Santa Claus. Because my dad was a really creative, detail-oriented, wonderful Santa Claus. And that has nothing to do with zombies. But I do tell people that I sat on a zombie's lap before I met a mall Santa.
Let's talk about your pathway to zombies.
Yes.
I'd love to know about, well, yeah, like we're here to talk Queens of the Dead, but I'd like to know about the path there. So what was your first experience with a zombie movie?
Oh my God, I don't even remember my first experience with zombie. I just kind of grew up with like, there are certain things that exist. Santa Claus exists, zombies exist, the Tooth Fairy exists, all because of my dad. You know, people do ask me all the time, like, was your childhood a little up? And I say, no. It wasn't the zombies that messed me up. It was Santa Claus. Because my dad was a really creative, detail-oriented, wonderful Santa Claus. And that has nothing to do with zombies. But I do tell people that I sat on a zombie's lap before I met a mall Santa. So they just always were. They just always were. And I didn't find them particularly scary because they had to do with my dad.
Sure.
There were other things in my life that scared me, like Fluffy's crate from Creepshow was in my dad's office, and it had dried blood on it and chains, and I knew it was fake, but I wasn't convinced that Fluffy wasn't in there. So I always walked like a little bit quicker.
That's very valid.
Yeah.
Do you remember what your first horror movie was that you watched?
I think it was Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Ooh.
And I think it was before 5. There was no censorship. My dad didn't believe in it, and it was like if it was on, and we were watching it.
No, totally. I think Gremlins was if it wasn't my first, it's the first one I remember, and because as creepy as it is, at the end they do that like monologue where they're like, if anything's wrong in your house, it's a gremlin. And we had just moved into what people like to call a fixer-upper. And so we literally moved in and there were bees in the walls. The first night there was a big spider in my bed. Things just didn't work. And I was like, there are gremlins in this house.
Here.
And no one believes me. And like, I just... It was like any dark corner. I'm like, no, there's a gremlin over there. You cannot convince me.
Yeah, you know, as kids, our minds are like a little bit more malleable. So my dad had some weird books in his office too, that when he was away, I would like go in there and I just wanted to look at them, even though they kind of scared me. And there was like an encyclopedia of werewolves, and I was captivated by it. And as a result, I had several night terrors featuring wolves, like wolves wearing 3-piece sweater vests with a pocket watch, staring at me like it's time for dinner, Tina. Like weird.
That sounds like its own brand of erotica. Like
yes,
definitely...
exactly. I don't know. Yeah, it's the fairy tale mashup and like the early sexual waking. I don't know. Big Bad Wolf was a thing though. Yeah.
I want to circle back because you said he was a very detail-oriented Santa Claus.
Yes.
I want to hear more about that.
Well, Santa always had, it wasn't so much about the gifts, it was about the story of Santa's, like, his trials and tribulations. And he always had some kind of drama getting into the house. There was one year he left his wallet, and, poor Santa had everything in there. Currency from all over the world, his international driving permit made out to Santerio Claus with a photo. He had pictures of me and Martha, Leningrad, 92, Dasher on his 100th birthday, a frequent shopper card at the Hallmark Center, Rothschild Big and Tall card, reindeer feed shop. There was that's what I say about the details, is like the fantasy that my dad would create in these little, and I actually later in my adult life I learned that he had taken his mother, after she passed, her wallet, and he kind of took that and modified all these things into this, like, and when I could see the whiteout now on the credit card, like, I see the name. And so maybe it was his, like, some kind of way of coping with her death, perhaps, by turning it into some kind of creativity. But for us as kids, it was really wonderful. I mean, there was one year he couldn't get down the chimneys. We were in Florida. There were no chimneys to get down. And it was like, and we eventually found a little piece of red fabric coming out of this attic thing, and we pulled it down, and there was like a stocking that fell down. And when my brother, I believed in Santa like for way too long, and embarrassingly.
To be fair,
yeah,
the commitment to the bit.
The commitment to the bit. I'm talking like, always the cookies were eaten, but then there were just these special details. If there was a note, it was like a wax with a press. It was so legit. And my brother is a different kid than I am, and he was like at 2. He was like, I don't know about this Santa thing. And I was like, what are you talking about? Santa's totally real. And my dad was like, well, what do you want to do about it then? And my brother suggested that we set up a camera. And so they put a camera at the top of the staircase and in real time let it play out. So they waited until like 3 a.m. and my dad had his friend come in, like pillow under the suit, come in, do the thing at the tree, leave, and then he rigged lighting outside our house so that there was like a gobo with like a silhouette of a sleigh taking off outside the window. Like he did a full-on production.
That's amazing.
And so the next morning they're watching the tape and my brother was like, okay. You know, he's going to believe for a couple more years.
And speaking to that, I mean, the idea kind of came from your own experiences.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, his idea was...
the time you were obviously attacked by zombies.
Exactly, yes. There was that one crazy night back in...
Just realized the way I phrased that was very much like, well, we all know it's based on a true story.
Yes, it does feel like zombies every day out there, though. The phone zombies on these streets really feel real. I mean, I myself have like almost stepped into traffic because I'm on my stupid phone. It's so crazy.
When I almost run into someone, the outrage I personally have is if it's their fault.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh,
no,
I don't need to be checking emails while I'm walking. That's on me.
Yeah, exactly. Or even worse, like playing Candy Crush. I'm like, what am I doing? I hate how it doesn't feel sometimes like a choice. And I really do feel like the real zombies in this film and maybe in the world is the tech, and like they are eating our brains, and it's dark shit. But yes, I for many years after film school performed as DJ Tricks in the queer nightlife scene, and it's really where I came of age as a DJ and as a person, and found myself, found self-expression, found chosen family. And there was a beloved party that I DJ'd called Hot Rabbit that still exists, actually. And it was a party that always gave a stage to performers. That's a big part of it, is that there's a performance element. And it also is a party that does the most to make it an experience for people without upping the cover charge. So it keeps its ticket prices low. As a result, doesn't turn a large profit. You know, the promoter is like screwing in her own light bulbs. She is wheeling a Nana cart with like the step and repeat that she had printed herself and is gonna like put up with a stapler. It's like a blood, sweat, and tears party. And that's what I wanted to capture the spirit of in this main party in Queens of the Dead, is Dre is like doing the most to give her people a good time. And anyway, there was this one event that took place. It was a promoter drama. There was some social media war, and a manifesto was posted begging the question, when will the queer community stop devouring its own? And it like hit me like a bolt of lightning. I was like, oh my God, this is exactly how I will do zombies, is through the lens of queer nightlife. This is how I could do it. This is how I could tell a story that I know how to tell. And it just felt too perfect. It's like in that moment, I knew that I needed to do Queens of the Dead. And I wanted to mash up these worlds. I wanted to have drag zombies. I wanted to have queer zombies. I wanted to have queer club kids. I wanted to watch this community go through an absolutely insane night and ultimately survive it from sticking together.
But I'm curious for you, so like growing up around all of this, certainly like being exposed to filmmaking like this, there must have been an interest in it, but also is there a kind of concern of being like, is there any party that's like, I don't want to I want to do my own thing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I certainly was nervous about stepping into zombies because I didn't want to try to be my dad.
Sure.
I'm not my dad. I'm so different from him. But that being said, he is like, I idolized him too, and I adored him so much, and I loved the films he made, and I love this monster he created, and I feel great honor and pride and responsibility in carrying the torch. So it's a little bit of both and, you know.
Sure.
I'm not trying to shy away from the fact that I'm his kid, because I am, and he's influenced me so greatly. But I also didn't want to touch the genre unless I could do it with my own voice, and that's what I set out to do. Is like let me try to do the justice that I can to my dad's legacy and to his zombie universe, while also introducing myself as a different kind of filmmaker who's like, you know, female, queer, a little more dancey, a little more into the color pink, and perhaps more of an optimist than he was.
Yeah, so I would like for you to talk about that, because watching the film, I enjoy that you do reference. Like there's literally a part where, we'll get to the cameo in a sec, but where someone says like, this isn't a George Romero movie regarding like the fall out in the streets, but these are zombies that are like reminiscent of, I would say, more like Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead zombies.
Totally. I specifically was going for the Dawn of the Dead zombie. I really liked how they just painted him green. I like it. And I think my dad, he was really big on trusting your audience to, if you set up the rules well, trust them to follow them. You just have to explain the stakes and you have to explain the world, and then they will go along the ride. And in Dawn of the Dead, they paint the zombies green, and those are the zombies. And also, I think Dawn is the most fun of, I think many of us would agree, that's the most fun of the Romero zombie flicks. And so I wanted to go for fun, because I think zombies really lend themselves to being silly and playful. And while it is a scary monster, and like, one zombie can be silly and fun, en masse and a zombie mob is always a problem.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to throw back to Dawn of the Dead with the look of the zombies and just add a little shimmer on top of that.
Yeah, there's one, glitter, but two, everyone does have just a very killer contour.
Yes, they do. We really wanted to make sure we left room in our prosthetics to like to have those cheekbones, honey, and have the fabulous eyeshadow, leaving room in the Lone Ranger prosthetic to like do a fabulous eye look on top of the zombie makeup. And that was from the beginning. Before I had a page on the script, I had a lookbook that was all about the glam gore. I really wanted to figure out how to do glam gore. Not only because I think that the zombie genre is frankly a very butch genre, and I was highly interested in femming it up and making it a little more fabulous. And on top of that, I think it's the world of this movie is queer nightlife. It is begging for a fabulous looking zombie. And I also was interested in like, how could we invite people into this world maybe that aren't so used to horror? Maybe it's a nice gateway. It's a gateway horror film, perhaps.
I like that idea. I think that's true. I also think it speaks to an attitude in the queer community that we just aren't going to take anything that seriously. Like, even when it's a life and death stakes, we're still going to have fun with it. There's still going to be dancing in the streets. There's still going to be, we're going to figure it out in that way. And I feel like the film reflects that really nicely.
Awesome. Yeah, I think queer people are the funniest, the most fabulous, party the best, and are the strongest, most resilient people out there.
Yeah, that's part of why it was fun watching them, because it was like, what I enjoyed about it is you set up the idea that Romero movies exist.
Yeah.
So there might be someone in that crowd who like Scream is like, oh, well, that's gonna, but these, no, not really. Like, it doesn't really help them that those movies exist, because they're not people who have ever had to think about how am I gonna survive a zombie apocalypse.
Right, yes.
Except for Margaret Cho. I feel like she's played that script in her head.
Yeah, she's ready. Margaret Cho, Pops is ready. The Power Dyke Posse, as they were called in the script, Pops' crew, was like existed very early on as in the character database of in this world that we wanted to make. Because I know that some of the first people I would call would be my power lesbians who definitely have a drill in their trunk,
right,
and like a compass and a survival box, and like they are the people with a plan who are going to organize and get the hell out of the city, which is what we all would need to do in the event of the Undead Rising. Yeah.
Well, speaking to that, I know you worked on the script for like 10 years.
Yeah.
How did it evolve over that time?
Oh, mostly in scale. Aaron Judge and I, my brilliant friend and co-writer, we let ourselves write with abandon. We weren't thinking about money, we weren't thinking about shootability. And so we had like 4 different parties, because I was very interested in all the different parties that take place on a Saturday night in Bushwick. Mm-hmm. Intrigued me, and I wanted to sort of play with the contrast and all those things. And ultimately we kept the two. We kept the influencer party and the queer party, because one of the things I was most interested in looking at is the corporate poaching of queer talent.
Yeah.
And how at these brand parties that have all the resources and all the money, how like there can also be this soullessness there, because the people who are coming to work are mostly on their phones and not talking and not dancing and not actually hanging out at all. And how even more often there's like a drag queen performing or a queer DJ, or like, it's cachet and it's cool and it's hip to have the queer people come entertain you. It's not as simple as just like, oh, it's gross, because I want queer people to get paid.
Sure.
And they have the budget. And so Yasmin in the movie, she's getting her money. She wants to get that money, and that's great. But at the end of the day, she's going to go, when the shit goes down, she's going to go home to the safe space, to her queer family. But we used to have a third party that was a Wall Street party where they had to go rescue Sam's brother, and like then they had to get to the boat. We saw the boat. There was a fight at the waterside with Con Ed zombies, and it was just a massively bigger world with even more characters, if you can imagine. So I think that a lot of the work in development was just whittling away and getting down to what's the most needed, and also. I remember when we made the decision, like, let's try to contain this as much as possible to the club.
Yeah.
It's actually classic Night of the Living Dead to contain it as much as possible, and it gives us a shot at actually getting this thing done.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to speak about kind of what other connections this has to your dad's movies, including like Tom Savini's in this movie, which I know you've worked with him before. Can you tell me a bit about that and how he came to be a part of this?
Well, Tom was such a great mentor to me in the years leading up to this film. When I found myself in Pittsburgh, I would head over to the Colossum Studios office and shoot the shit with Tom, and we would talk about glam gore and how I could get, how can we get glitter and sequins and like sparkle into the blood in a way that feels realistic, and we would talk about the gags, and a lot of things change. When you get on set and you actually are doing it, a lot of our original ideas changed, and but the brainstorming with Tom was so useful. And Tom and his partner Jason Baker, who runs Colossum Studios, they made the zombie puppet. There's a baby in there, the zombie baby, and they made that for me because I was so didn't want to have a real live baby on set at 4 a.m.
Sure.
And I'd made the choice early on. I said I would rather have charmingly bad practical effects than try to do bad CGI. And I do think like there's just something so magic about doing things practically. And Tom is the king of that.
Yeah.
And so I did call Tom a lot in that way. And so we don't have it's a large ensemble cast. There's not a lot of bit parts. And the few that there are, like the doctor, I don't know if you clocked this, but the doctor in the hospital is Galen Ross from Dawn of the Dead. And then Tom Savini plays the mayor. And I really wanted these two cameos to be from the Romero universe. I thought that would be very fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like, because with Tom, you have Janet Jackson being like, oh, this guy.
I know.
Which is like a good nod to the cameo, but also just how we typically refer to our mayors in New York.
Exactly.
Like, that might change. Who's to say?
Yeah.
But for a while, it's been just, I joke with a friend of mine that like one of the best New York movies is Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
Oh, yes.
In part because the mayor in that is so loathed and so useless.
Yes, that is a great film. Yes, exactly, and that's what we were going for in that scene.
Right, like the mayor's not going to save us.
No, the mayor's not going to save us. In fact, the mayor is actually like actively. That scene was written as the mayor's on a getaway yacht.
You do get that with that last shot. It's very.
We were trying to like give the mayor is telling you everything's fine, but he's
gone.
But instead, in this version, he's actually at an apocalypse party, with a fake White House Zoom background, which I love it even more. It's really true. Like there's just magic that money can't buy, and when you're strapped for cash, like you come up with creative solutions. I love this Zoom version way more than the yacht version, actually. Like I think it's perfect, and I think it's perfect that it's Tom.
I mean, that's part of what I like so much about the movie is that it does have this practical, this DIY, this slightly grungy approach that I feel like is true to what I know of queer creatives, where frankly we're not often given the same kind of resources, and so you figure it out.
Yes, 100%. And David Tabbert, the head of costumes, we got to clap it up for him because he had really a big task. And he was tasked with like, okay, I got to make these drag showdown looks at the end, because this was the conceit from the beginning. And he and I were jamming on ideas years before we had any green light or funding. And we had sketches, and we knew that, we talked a lot about drag as armor. And in this case, it's going to literally be armor. And we were so psyched at the idea of like, what are they using in the bar to make these things come together? And it was in the era of like drag race royalty, when these queens are coming, they're pulling out every stop, and they are really giving us incredible runways. It's intimidating to do this film with drag as such a major touch point, and the finale. How do we keep up? And it wasn't until we said to each other, it's about DIY.
Yeah.
It's about make it work. It's about being scrappy. Lean into that, and that unleashed, it unlocked the nerves, and it allowed us to just be okay with like, these are DIY outfits. They are going to be spray painting poppers bottles and tying them on as part of their arm. They're going to use plastic forks and knives. It's going to be beer cans. It's going to be that. And I actually think it's perfect. I love, and Derek St. Pierre was the builder of those looks. He's a Pittsburgher. His parents worked on my dad's films, and that all happened like just sort of serendipitously, which is just so cool. Like the Pittsburgh connections, the way that it's the way that there's like Romero history in there, it just feels really right.
I love that. And I mean, when making the film, was there ever a point where you're kind of thinking about like what your dad would think on that, or is that like, was that a guiding light, or was that a pressure?
I think I wonder all the time what my dad would think about this movie. I wish I could show it to him so badly. I think he would think it was fun. The times where I felt him the most were actually in on set on the most stressful days. Like when shit was falling apart, when we had no time to shoot something, but everything was in place and it looked so amazing, and I would be like so frustrated that I only had 4 minutes to shoot this scene. And I would kind of like channel him, and I would hear him laughing and hear him looking at what we had going on, and hear him reminding me like, Tina, this is so silly. This is so ridiculous. Look, you have 60 zombies at 4 a.m. in Paterson, New Jersey, in the middle of the street with a fog machine, and Nina West is on a scooter in a nurse's outfit. Like, this is absurd and amazing, and you're so lucky to be doing this right now. Don't forget to have a little fun. Don't forget to play. And I think that that's where I channeled my dad the most, was like keeping the perspective that it's not life or death. It's making a movie, and it's going to be okay, and it's important to have fun while you do it. Which sounds kind of cheesy, but it's like it was that right. It was his voice and his ability to be playful, even in the face of serious times, be it like whatever the fuck is going on in the news, or like when the shit's falling apart on set. He was always able to laugh.
I love that.
Yeah, he was a very silly, funny guy.
And you have such an incredible cast. Can you talk a bit about, like, how are you looking for people, and how did you pitch this?
Oh, good question. We started casting years before we had any business to be doing so. My producers from Vanishing Angle really encouraged me to start writing letters right away. Mm-hmm. And so I was writing letters, and I did get a lot of no's. I got a lot of no's, but then you would get one magical yes. And my first magical yes was from Dominique Jackson. And she and I had a Zoom, and she related so much to the fact that this was in the club scene. She comes from this world in New York, and she had been in situations with her girlfriends who were like, would fantasize in the green room about what would they use to get out of here should the shit go down. And like, just nightlife as a place of resistance is important.
And I mean,
her.
also just true to, frankly, queer culture.
Exactly. And so she was on board, and I think that unlocked some other yeses for me. But the thing that was important to me above all was that we cast this thing as authentically queer as possible. Something that I wish happened more. This is a queer movie, and I felt like these queer people need to be played by queer people. And so that was it. And so it does become this dance of like, who gets your movie made, like who is the right person for this role. But at the end of the day, like I can't imagine a more perfect cast. This cast is a dream come true. Every single one of them is absolutely perfect, and they all came with the most professional attitude and like ready to roll up their sleeves and get dirty, despite the fact that this was not, we didn't have trailers, we didn't have private dressing rooms, we didn't have a smoothie truck. We had some chips and a warehouse in Jersey, and everyone was like down to make it happen, which is just so cool. And this is the type of set where like the second AC and Dominique Jackson are on a first name basis. Mm-hmm. And I think that creates a family atmosphere that made everyone feel extra safe and able to like step into their characters in an authentic way. And I think that's why some of, I think that the queerness in this film feels pretty authentic as a result, because everyone was there as themselves.
I mean, I would say so. And I've so enjoyed the film and so happy to have you here. Is there anything else you want to tell us before you head out?
The movie is releasing this Friday, October 24th. I can't believe it. I'm pinching myself, and I'm so freaking grateful to IFC and Shudder that they're putting this film out right now, because it is a scary time. It always is kind of a scary time, but right now for this community, I know we are feeling pretty dark and pretty erased and pretty unsafe. And so I feel really proud that this film puts queer people on the screen in a colorful, joyous, wonderful light. And I think that what we need right now is a little bit of queer joy, and something that, you know, maybe allows you to leave the theater feeling uplifted with a pep in your step and hopeful. And I just think the timing is really good.